Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic and Apprentice 121. You'll see we have another GivEnergy all-in-one and gateway ready to hand over to a customer. We've just finished installing this. I'm going to take you through the entire thing, including some of the roof work. We've been ably assisted again by Mike from Eastern Renewables, and he has done a cracking job up there with Matthew and Nathan, as you will see. Just going to speak about the equipment at the start and then we'll run through it as well. But before we get into all of that, a massive thank you to the customer on this one. Again, spoiled as rotten with lunches and cakes and teas and coffees non-stop. So it really does make the job so much easier and nicer to do. And yeah, just a massive, massive thank you to you guys, you're absolute legends, to join the club of other awesome customers over the last few videos as well. This is an ongoing thing now, and we're not dropping hints for that, to be fair. It is just something that's happening and it's really nice. And we are genuinely very grateful, especially Nathan. He's a hungry boy. But yeah, speaking about this, you'll have seen these if you've watched some of the earlier content already. This one's a little bit different because we were very tight for space. We're in a garage again. It's a nice big double garage. There's no vehicles in here whatsoever. It's basically customers' fridges, freezers, bikes, and storage space. It's an absolute ideal location for a battery storage system. You can see here we've also replaced the consumer unit. You're going to see me doing that. So we've got a Proteus twin stacker here. Again, full of your Type A bidirectional RCBOs, and Proteus have had that in the range for absolutely ever. There's an empty box here, which is waiting the TIGO router to connect to the internet and tell us what the optimizers are doing up on the roof. We'll get to all of that later on as well. Hopefully, the wholesaler is going to drop that with me imminently, so we can get that wired up. We've got a grow watt inverter, which would have to mount a little bit lower down than I would have otherwise liked, but again, space is the premium. That's the best place we could get for it. We've got the 300mm clearance between the two inverters, so we're happy with that. And this is an 8 kilowatt variety. So there's two big strings up there. That's the reason we've got a nice big inverter. The gateway itself, you can see we've got our IMO isolators. Now, point of note with these, you don't need to do the twice through the isolator with the little buzz bars or linking wires that you might be familiar with. These can break a DC connection through the one terminal. So you can go into one and out from two. It's still at opposing sides on these, so you need to watch yourself when you're wiring those up, but you don't need any of the linking wires. And shout out to Josh Powell, who made a comment on one of my other videos where we had done that, and just a force of habit really, you don't need to. We've got our grid tails coming into this. The main metering is just the other side of this wall with a Proteus isolator out there. That was already there, so that was really handy. Nice point of isolation. And then we've got our tails feed out over to the consumer unit here. We've then got the HO7 cable running off to the PV inverter and the all-in-one, and then a selection of data cables and metering connections, because we have combined a myenergi Zappi on this, and all the CTs for that very handily live in the gateway, but it's another cable. It wasn't possible to get back to the router with a direct data connection, so the customer's provided a power over Ethernet connection point and a little hub, so we've been able to plug in all of this equipment to a hardwired connection. We've also backed it up with the Wi-Fi configuration done, so if ever there was a major issue, it could be swung over to a Wi-Fi mode and hopefully would connect. The Wi-Fi signal's not great in here, hence the customer wanting to go down that road. Got all our labels on. You'll see we've got our PowerSonic badges on there, brand everything. I still need to put the dates and stuff on these, but otherwise it's all labelled up. I'm just waiting for the TIGO so we can finish it, but I thought while I'm waiting for the wholesaler, we'll get this video on the go and see where we're at. So I'll jump behind the camera now and I'll run you around and show you absolutely everything we've got, and then we'll cut through to the guys fitting it. So if you're a consumer and you're just looking at this because you're interested in it and you want this in your home, I'm going to do that right at the start, and my contact details are in the description of this video. Please do go over to the website, drop those in and get in touch. We work all over the UK doing this kind of thing. We love challenging jobs. This one's been interesting. Not so challenging, the roof's actually quite nice. We've used PV Ultra on it as well, so there's a lot going on here to share. But again, super, bit of challenging solar storage, battery storage, combining all of that together, blending in with the replacement consumer unit. It's been an interesting job. We've also got a conducdisc on it. I'm waffling, let's go and have a look at what we've got. So just to bring you in close to this again, to explain how this works really quickly, because I have done this on other videos loads already. But your grid comes in here, so that's your main power supply from your electricity meter. It then runs into all the clever electronics up here in the gateway, which will subsequently connect in the all-in-one, the PV inverter, the EV charger, and then your house loads. So in a connected state, the system intelligently makes use of the generation and the battery storage to try and cover off the house loads. If there's any extra beyond that and the battery's already full, it would then start to export that power to the grid or the electric vehicle if it was demanding it. And we'll have a look at that on the myenergi Zappi out the side in a moment. If the grid was to go down, this system would kick in to power the house loads from the all-in-one and the PV. And again, you can have, depending on how sunny it is, in this case, up to about 14 kilowatts or so of usable power in the peak generation window, which is, you know, it's unlikely that that's going to ever happen at that time, but if it did, you can do that, and it would recharge the battery as well to keep you going a little bit longer. It's kind of just to feel safe if the grid goes down. These days, that's very rare anyway, but when it does, it can maybe see you through a few hours while the DNO operatives get you back connected. And when that connection is remade, the grid is synced back to the system. It takes a few seconds. I've shown it before when we've done it, just to maintain that safety aspect for people out on the grid and also the consumers as well, internal to the installation. We've got our PV isolators here, the AIO ones. This is for the all-in-one, so you must have one of these AC rotary isolators, and again from M2. Those of you who watch my channel regularly will know that's one of my absolute favourite isolators. A little socket we've popped on here with some USB ports. This is a Verso socket. It's just to power the router and the power over Ethernet. So we've got that done. This is where the TIGO router is going to live, TIGO. So we've already got the tap wired up on the roof, which the guys have hopefully showed you in the content they've recorded for me. That's waiting to be wired in along with its power supply and its internet connection. So that should just be a very quick wire up. And again, the consumer unit, I'll show you a time lapse of this later on, but it's all in. Basically got the existing circuits up the top and then some of the newer circuits that we've popped in down here. And again, there's room there then for somebody to come along later and expand this system without too much difficulty, all being well. The inverter there, we are a good 600 off the floor. There is the space around it in terms of the manufacturer's instructions. Ideally, I would have liked a little bit higher up, but we're secure and ready to go. So I thought I'd show you as we walk around, and again, you'll see footage of this later on, but we've got a little whisker box here which brings our earth out for the conducdisc, which is in the ground under here. I'm not a gardener, but that isn't too bad. It's just had a good soak in to let it all bed in and settle in. We've got the Zappi out here, and at the minute it's got 4 kilowatts there. Has been up to around 7 or 8 kilowatts, so it's been doing really well. There's a lot of consumption in the house at the minute because the battery storage system is doing its calibration, so it's taking charge into itself at around 6 kilowatts, which if you add these two up is roughly what you get. And yeah, that's sat there, looks nice in white, it's come up really good. We've gone rear entry, and again there'll be some footage of that being installed. The solar is on the back. The PV Ultra runs up here and into the loft up there. We have taken a data cable with that, and that's for the tap to connect the optimisers into the router just in the garage, the other side of this wall. But let's jump round up to the roof. Just to show you in the meter cab, actually, we've got the Proteus isolate, which was already here, sealed up by the metering company. A while ago that's been existing. We did bring some new tails through. The other ones were perfectly adequate, they were just a little bit short, so we've had to swap those out. And again, it's straight through the wall and up into the gateway. It's only a couple of meters, but the other ones were kind of about 300 mil too short, which is frustrating, so we need to clean out. You can see here some old tags that have been cut off by meter fitters, some more rusty than others, but yeah, these are ID'd, genuine ones. It's not me pretending. That was already existing. Let's pick that cleat up there and close this up. Let's go around and see the roof. Okay, so up here we have got the 18 Jinko 440s, and you can see the birds have already given them a nice coating, which is always the way. They need a bit of rain just to wash them off. But yeah, they look the business. We've got a nice distance off the top, similar to the bottom. It's about 400 mil, and we are 600 off the edges. If I just wiggle down, I can show you. So yeah, we've got a good distance off the edges. The guys have got the bird guard up. This is a new one on us. We were using the Van der Valk bird guard. However, I've got to agree with other installers who've recommended this. The mesh is so much faster, and it gives me a lot more confidence that it's going to stay where it is as well. So yeah, looks nicer, easier to install. Thank you to Sam at Oval and Mike from Eastern for the tip on that. But yeah, these are dead flat. We've got our clamps in the right mounting places to secure these panels down. This is Van der Valk frame, as always. I'd say actually always, we use Renusol on the last job I think that was on the channel, which again, it's a great mounting system, but we just prefer Van der Vault. Gives a bit more adjustment in your brackets and such, as we'll show through the course of this video. But yeah, 440 watt panels, so you've roughly got 8 kilowatts, near enough, for peak generation. And you can see out into the distance here, the sun is up here. It is, I think it's about nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's nearly south facing. It's a really good aspect. There's not a lot of shading going on here, even in winter, maybe a bit on the horizon, but otherwise this is largely open. So the TIGO optimizers have been utilised just for this, I say just, but for the safety aspect. So we've got the rapid shutdown once we get the tap connected into the receiver that's going in the garage. They do the temperature monitoring on the underside of the panels, and it just gives that reassurance that if there ever is an issue, they will shut themselves down and stop anything catastrophic from going wrong, which is reassuring for us installers, but also for consumers. So we would always recommend these on a system, even if there's no shading, and that's what we've done here. The cost aspect isn't that great in the grand scheme of things, and you know, you'll still get better generation, I would say, over a year with a bit of cloud shading, low light conditions when it's variable across the array. This is quite a large one. So yeah, there's benefits there. Waffling, so I'm not going to go on too much. We've got our winch on here as well for lifting stuff up and on off the platform. We've got our side rails. As always, the scaffs have done us a good job on here, so we're happy with the system we've got. Ladders up there as always, and secured into the lawn, so we've got no complaints on that one. And yeah, I'm happy with that's come together. We are definitely getting spoilt today. Our customers are so nice. Thank you very much to Roger and his wife. That is very much appreciated. So we're going to have a little break for lunch now. Little coffee, little sarnie. You can hear the guys and baby up on the roof, just finishing off the last rail. It is, I'm not got a watch on, it's about 12:30. So it's not a bad morning's work. I've been on with this. It looks a little bit messy, as you can see. For the minute, this board's getting replaced. This is all coming out, but it's just to keep the customer powered for the time being. Got the inverter going on here. Gateway is going to go just up there. Sorry, the all-in-one down here. Gateway just up there, and there's a solar inverter we need to try and sort of wangle in somewhere. We'll just have to see how that comes together, because space is at a premium on this one. So up on the roof, we've got Mike, Matthew and Nathan busily getting the system installed. But I can't not start this segment without talking about the hats. You are going to see a range of head attire among these three you will not find anywhere else. Now you can see the guys are busy getting the hooks ground out underneath those tiles and secured into the roof timbers before attaching our rail onto them. And this is Van der Vault mounting. It gives really good flexibility in the way these systems can be put together. I've shown it in detail close up on other videos. But you can see there the guys are just working away. We pop the tiles out, make sure we've got our hooks into situ. They get screwed through into the roof timbers below, and then the tiles over the top of them have a little grinding out, so they sit flush back over those hooks nice and tight. We don't want any water or insects getting in those holes either, and equally we want our hooks sat off the tiles below. Again, we've got videos on the channel that go into this in much more detail. This is a sped up run through of the guys doing the do. You can see now they're just measuring out for the next row of panels. So we've got 2 rows going on up here, as you will have seen at the start of the video, and it's just a case of making sure you get these set in the right place so the clamps that hold the panels down are in the right zone on top of them. So with this roof, we have got 2 rows of 440 watt Jinkos, and you can see Mike getting in the top corner panel hook up there. It was a little bit tricky towards the edge of the roof where the tiles are concreted in at the ridge and also the edge. But the professional that Mike is, he got us in there and done. Nathan's busy on the 3rd rail below there, so you can see he's got all of those hooks mounted in. Matthew's busy grinding out the tiles and just working between themselves. That's the best way to approach roof work. You need a good team around you to make it as painless and easy as possible. And they had this system hooked and railed within pretty much a morning's work. I think it was around 1:30 they weren't far away from done. So it doesn't take a massive amount of time once you have got the right people up there doing the work. And I popped up really for a chat because I am not the right person to be up there doing this type of work. I don't like heights. I don't like working on roofs, so I tend to keep out the way.
These guys are doing a cracking job. Mike's an absolute powerhouse. It's a pleasure to have him working with us. Matthew and Nathan absolutely love it. He's brilliant with the customers. He's such a grafter as well, and he really knows his stuff working in and around the roof spaces, and that's why we've got him coming on our jobs. It's sharing his knowledge and experience with our team, and he's more than willing to do that as well. You know, I've been taken back by lots of people in the renewable space willing to share their knowledge. He also came and recorded a podcast with myself and Sam on the renewables show, which will be out in a few weeks. And it was really interesting to learn about Mike's story that I had absolutely no idea about. And you can see him there in, I think that's his sunshine hat. He has different hats for different weather. So this is the sunny one. It didn't rain, so I don't think we're going to see his raining one. But they've just gone across there and leveled the rails up. That's an important step if you want your array to look flat and smooth, is to go through the process of running across with a straight edge and make sure you get those rails nice and flat. You can see now they're bringing the DC cables up and getting the optimizers into position. So we've used PV Ultra on this. So we come out in one place on the roof, and then we're going to piggyback the panels as we move along, so we can just have the one penetration through the roof, all the strings coming out together into their first string array, if you like. So there's 9 panels on each string, and yeah, it's just getting those in the right place, and all the cables secured up on the roof as well, so they're not rubbing on any of the roof structure. They're all cable tied onto the rails, the connectors as well. And the first panel is always the one to get set as best you can, because that's where you're going to take your levels going forward. So you can see the guys are taking their time with that, making sure we've got all the cables nice and secured and out the way, and that we are running level and square. And again, just the extra pair of hands on this makes such a difference. If you've got a few people there who you can all work together, someone holding a panel up, someone securing the cables, and just making a nice neat job of things. And you can see the guys doing that very well together there. It's not easy when you're up close to these things. They are very big. Making sure you keep that line and keep that level and square is really quite awkward. And with this garden, there wasn't a great view from ground level either. So it's just a case of doing your best as you go along. Get a few in and see how you're looking. And they're going to start dropping some in on this top row now. So that's when you're a bit easier then, because you've got a square edge to work from. You can just kind of start bedding them in, and away you go. We must have had a break for lunch because the camera angle has just shifted, but you can see Mike up there with Nathan, where they're just popping the clamps in that hold the panels down. So you know that the MC4 connectors get plugged into the panels, cables get secured away, and then the guys clamp them down to make sure the panels are held nice and flush onto those rails. So it's the whole system together that keeps this on your roof, and also spreads the wind loading into the timbers below, because it's the push down onto the array as well as the uplift underneath it that we're trying to cover off. And the hooks transfer that into the timbers below. The rails secure the panels down with that connection onto the hooks and onto the panels. And when the whole thing's kind of put together, it is a rock solid structure. So we're a little bit close here to see what they're actually up to with the panels. It's not so much into the distance. And the panels come with some fly leads on the back side of them, and we pop those into the secured MC4 cables, and then try and get our cables off the panels secured a little bit underneath the array itself as well. It's tricky because, you know, you're kind of trying to fix something down that's going underneath something you're screwing down, but we can only make best endeavours. And these are the TIGO optimisers. They do secure on the underside of the panel, as you can see there, but lots of safety features. Okay, so let's have a run through of this install. And first up is setting out in the garage. You can see we've got the all-in-one and the gateway on the wall ready, and I'm just looking to get the containment up. On this one we went for 100 by 50 trunking, and it was a bit of a squeeze. 100 by 100 would have been a lot easier. However, we made it work. So we'll pop in a piece of horizontal trunking up between the gateway and the all-in-one, and a piece of vertical to run up to the new consumer unit, which you'll see later on. We're then going to position the isolators, and with this one we didn't pre-build anything because we were working with a pretty tight space to fit what we needed. So it was a case of building this bespoke on site, and I'm busy just working away there, getting my DC isolators on. These ones are from IMO, so we're cutting our holes out into the trunking and make sure these are appropriately positioned. You can see we've got Mike with us on site, and you'll be seeing a bit more of him up on the roof later on in this video. Matty and Nathan as well, and they are busy getting the PV Ultra from where I'm located up to where those guys are working on the roof. And the reason they popped onto this is our solar panels were a little bit delayed, and you'll see mid this recording when the panels arrive. But you see we've got the PV Ultra now been put through, and I'm just going to pop the cable into the DC isolators as we move along with this video. For those of you who don't know, PV Ultra is an invention by my good friend and co-host of the Renewables podcast, Sam Featherstone, in combination with Doncaster cables. And this one we've got here is the 6mm 4-core, and that is just so we can easily run the PV cables up to the loft space, external to the building, without needing to install lots of conduit. It's a super simple way, a neat way as well, of getting your DC cables up onto the roof without running through somebody's home. This was a decorated and finished property, and the internal route was just off the cards. So you see we've got our AC cables now going in between the gateway and the all-in-one. So that's the HO7, and there's the panels you can see slowly arriving in the background there. And this, again, thanks to the wholesaler for getting them to us in the end today. It wasn't on the morning drop, but these things happen, and we've now got those ready to go. But you see we've got the HO7, and we're getting that wired in, so that's going to be popped into the gateway, and as always with the ferrules, and I'm having to put my glasses on there so I can see them. And you see the guys have joined me for a quick brew and a biscuit. The customer, as you'll see through the course of this video, really looked after us very, very well. And that's one of the important parts when you're doing this kind of work, is don't forget your breaks. The teamwork and chat around all of that is part of doing the job. It's not all non-stop graft, and we are good at taking breaks when they're needed, certainly after we've lifted 18 panels off the back of a wagon. You see we've got the HO7 cable now going down for the all-in-one, and this one is into a an M2 rotary isolator, and this is a 63 amp rated one. Always oversized them, in my opinion. It stops them from running near their maximum rated capacity, and you just get a bit more wiring room. There's not a lot of cost difference actually between the 63 amps and the 32s from M2. I think they're around 35-40 quid ish, which is excellent value. And you can see we're now popping the PV cable in again using HO7, and that's just because we're in the containment amongst lots of other cabling, so we're going for that double insulation on all of the conductors in there to make sure we've got adequate protection on all of our DC and AC cables. We're going to drop that down to where the grow watt inverter is going to live. We're a bit tight on room, as I said earlier on in the video, so we're going to pop that at a little bit lower level than we normally would, but it'll all come together in the end. You see securing the gateway onto the bracket there with its little torque screws, and we can start looking at getting the all-in-ones batteries mounted in. So for those of you who don't know, there's 4 like suitcase, briefcase style battery modules that slide in to the all-in-one, and they're secured in with some screws on the side to stop them from falling out. And then there is a metal front cover as well, just to encase it all. Now the consumer unit was also on my remit, and with this one I'm marking up the existing circuits. Thankfully it had been installed very well, dressed away reasonably nicely, and lots of length on the cables for me to work with in the new board. But it's important to identify those as best as we can. The customer just wanted to upgrade the board and get everything to modern standards. While we were doing it, they still had some circuits that were on non-RCD protected ways, so it was just a case of bringing everything up to the same standard. And as always, we go for the Proteus on anything, well, anything at all to be fair, but with renewables especially so, because they've had the bi-directional aspect built into their overcurrent protected devices since they launched them, I think 5 years ago now. It's nothing new to those guys. They were a bit what's the fuss kind of thing when all of that started being talked about. And credit to them, they're adjusting their offering to match the requirements of modern wiring regulations, where we've been dictated to in terms of markings. So that's coming in the future range, because I've had questions about that before. We're going rear entry on this, just because we had a bit of a void in terms of the fireproof board we've used on the wall to cut the cables in and bring them in the back. It saves opening up any extra holes in the top of the board. It makes it a little bit neater and easier to dress away. So we're getting that fixed back there with the penny washers, nice and secure and square. And yeah, then it's just a case of trying to sort out your cables as best you can, really. I was having to play around with these, see if we had enough length to get onto the bottom row with some of these existing circuits, but they weren't quite long enough. And I thought there's loads of room in the top. There's absolutely no point in extending any of this cabling just to dress it up nicely in the board how I would want to do it. We're best working with what we've got to avoid those extra terminations. And you can see with this, we're working along, popping the breakers in and getting them in the opposing terminals on the neutral bar for the fly leads. and just setting out as best we can. It's always easier, in my opinion, to get all your fly leads in place before you start dropping your final circuits in. But sometimes I change my mind on that, and when I'm dressing these away, I will do it in an entirely different order. Such is choice. These aren't step-by-step guides, it's just how I've chose to install this board on this particular day. And yeah, we've got a few lighting circuits in there. I think there was 5, maybe 6, including the doorbell and the smokes. And then we've also got 3 ring final circuits, a cooker circuit, a circuit for the boiler, and one for a lamppost that we will show you as well later on in the video, because I very nearly, or I could have, hit the cable running down to that if we would gone for an earth electrode. But we'll chat about that later on. So yeah, CPCs, fold their way up to the top and get them into the correct terminal bars. I'm not shortening any of these. There's no point taking cable length away that could be useful to somebody in the future. That's a typical thing that's just cropped up there through my working day of the phone ringing. So that's constant interruptions, but that's the nature of the beast when you run a business. So yeah, that has to be covered off as well. But we see we've got the CPCs in there nice and neat, and then we're just looping down behind the DIN rail and then up into the top of the breakers. And you can dress those away above the breakers if you want. You can drop them behind the DIN rail, as long as you're not ramming everything down there and it pops up. So it can be pulled forward for testing or redressing, tucking them out of sight. Absolutely no issue with that. And you can see I'm just going over those with the driver. These will all be tested and torqued down later on as well. Getting our main earth in now. So that's been popped across to the gateway. And actually there's a link wire from the gateway to the consumer unit. The earth from the DNO service head comes straight into the consumer unit. All the earths come into the consumer unit. I was thinking of popping a little earth block separate to that, but again, it's just more stuff in the way in a limited space. So we've got both the bonds, the earth off the DNO side, all coming into the consumer unit, and then the linking wire that runs off to the gateway. The island mode earthing also comes into the consumer unit as well, so they're all tied together. Then got our tails, and these run across to the gateway, and they go into the load terminals on the gateway, which I'll show you later on, or I may have already showed you at the start of this video. But we then have those tails coming into the consumer unit. And again, using the Nipex Ergo strip on those, it's such an easy task with those. The knockouts I've left in the back of the board are for any future additions. They're really hard to get out when it's on the wall. So if we're on a wall surface that's not going to be penetrated by fire, so breeze block, fire block, I always take them out. And then somebody's just got to drill a hole in. It's much easier than having to try and get knockouts taken out along the way. And on the bottom we've just got the 2 new circuits, one for the socket that we popped in for the router and the power over Ethernet, and the other is for the TIGO tap and router, which I've showed you early on in this video but hasn't actually been delivered by the wholesaler as yet. Then just popping the blanks in to make sure all the spare ways are filled up, and that's it, tucked away pretty neat. I think I'm happy with that for a reworked consumer.
So I thought I'd show you the wiring for the EV charger. Now in this case we've gone for a Zappi, but you can still wire these out of the gateway. It's just important you follow the instructions. Obviously if you were using CloudSync with GivEnergy, it would link into the ecosystem. It doesn't so much with the Zappi, but it's still a point you can take that connected load from. The GivEnergy, again, if you wanted, you can use a physical meter similar to these that would slot in here. But in this case, you just take your line and neutral straight off the back there. The power is isolated to all of this, so there's no danger. But yeah, you can see neutral goes on this leg here, just under that screw there, and the line at the back there. On the newer gateways, there's another set of terminals just on these buzz bars with singular screws for them, so you don't need to interfere with the metering power. They run off into these, I think, looking at it, into the grid meter. You don't need to do that on the newer gateways. There's another set of terminals underneath where you can just pop these on, but just be careful with your polarity. It's easy to get mixed up with these. Neutral on the right, line on the left, and then that obviously is the neutral fly lead for the RCBO. The line drops down and feeds into the bottom of the RCBO, and then our final circuit comes out the top as normal. This is a bidirectional Proteus Type A RCBO B32, which is what GivEnergy dictate in their instructions. They've actually told me off for using 40s before, because I've always done that. You kind of upsize a little bit for the load, so you're not running these near their maximum rated power, but that's what they're actually asking for in the instructions. So yeah, just a point of note with that, if you're fitting these gateways and you're asking for tech support, I've been told a couple of times now that they need to be 32s. So yeah, pop that cover on, get this juiced up and see where we're at. So you can see we've got the myenergi Zappi in, and this is measuring the solar generation, the grid, and also what the AC coupled battery's doing. The figures are all a bit haywire at the minute because the GivEnergy system is currently doing its commission, so we've got a lot of export going on while the all-in-one empties. We've also seen generation up towards 8 kilowatts. You can see the sun's sort of a bit in and out. If we hung around here long enough and it peeps back through, it would jump up to sort of 7.7. I'll try and catch it when that's happening. However, there's a bit of a cloud popped up, so we're just going to have to wait for that. Once it's sunny again, I'll come around and show you. Here is where I'm going to pop the conducdisc. So I've broke ground with a shovel. We've got our earth cable through, so we'll test that as well and get a value of RA and see what we manage to achieve. And yeah, conducrete, conducdisc, all going in. I'm going to get on with that now, and then if I catch some sunshine, I'll show you what this is pumping out, and we'll have a little look up on the array to see what the guys have done up there too. Just to rudely interrupt, you should be able to see, if it's focusing, that is 7.8 kilowatts. We've got 8.8 flowing out. Our limit's 9.5, so we're doing okay there. And yeah, I'll carry on with some digging. Just to show you actually, while we are digging out, I've actually found an electric pipe in there, and that runs to a lamp post at the end. It is rigid duct with steel wire armouring, but there's no overlay tape, and you can see how easy it is if you start smacking rods into the ground to start going through stuff like that. It could be a water pipe, it could be absolutely anything. We've no idea what's under here, so the conducdisc is such a safe way to go. I just need to excavate that out now a bit deeper and make a little channel across to get from the garage to the hole. So again, getting spoiled and getting fatter, where we've had a nice cream cake by the customer. So these customers this time, Roger, really stepping up the game. So thank you very much again for watching the video, and to our awesome customer who looked after us so brilliantly on this install. Mike, Matthew and Nathan also want to pass on their thanks to you guys. I hope you're going to enjoy this system for many, many years to come. As always, this is fully insured and warranted through our MCS accreditation and through our consumer protection code of practice. And all the warranties on these products are some of the longest on the market. So the GivEnergy system carries a 12-year warranty. These panels behind me have a 25-year performance guarantee. And the grow watt inverter is 10 years as well. So we've got long warranties there on all of the products, really to try and give reassurance to consumers using brands that have been around for a good while and have an excellent reputation in honouring those warranties. And equally with the insurance back guarantee, if there is any issue with the installers, because these things do happen to certainly some of these bigger national companies where they seem to start up and close down week to week, make sure you do get those guarantees and warranties in place if you are a consumer, and work with smaller local independent installers, because you will generally get a better service and those people will want to look after you and give you a system that's going to perform in the best way for you over the long term. And on that note, if you are looking for installers, please do get in touch with us in the comments below, in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video, if you have any questions or want to ask why we've done something, give your feedback, tips and tricks that we could maybe integrate into our installs to make us better, again, get those in the comments. We absolutely love that. And otherwise, just thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.